So my live streams are works in progress, but I've added an extra feature here where if you call in, we can actually talk during the live stream. You don't have to just put chats in the message. And welcome to those of you who have joined me. Just pop in the chat where you're from. I'm just curious. And we'll just talk about whatever you want to talk about. There is a ton to talk about political kinds of events like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization last well in the early part of the week, and then what came out of that, and then immediately after that, you saw Zelensky meeting with the Nordic Eight, and with the Nordic Eight from there to Paris to meet with like 30 European leaders from around the world, with including with Trump in a teleconference. And what came out of that wasn't all that exciting, as far as like there wasn't a great demand, except for we demand that you stop buying Russian oil. Okay, well, most of Europe already is stopped buying Russian oil. That it's really Hungary and Slovakia that are still kind of trying to buy the cheaper Russian oil. Now, there is possibility that some are buying Indian oil secondhand, not knowing it's Russian, or knowing but not saying anything that it's Russian. But that was it. There was no like, hey, we'll reevaluate in 2 weeks, or he's getting on my nerves, or here come the sanctions. There were no sanctions. Trump doesn't want to sanction Putin. He wants to keep his close relationship with Putin, and that's where we are right now. All right, so I'll answer whatever questions you have, populate them in the chat, or go over to Podbean. The link is here. If you go to https colon backslash backslash tinyurl.com, Gertis, and it's September 5. Well, today's September 6, but I put it together last night, so I wasn't really. I'm a little tired, so and then you can talk on Podbean and just ask me actual questions, or we can answer questions in the chat. Only ask what are the facts, asks in the chat. How does the war in Ukraine end, Professor? And if I knew that, that'd be amazing. Welcome, Jonathan McElravy, to air, and I'll answer your questions in a second. Somebody just asked in the chat, how does the war end? I don't know. But there are a number of plausible solutions. I don't think it ends with a huge battlefield loss for Ukraine or Russia. I don't. There's not mobility. There's not movement. It looks like there's not going to be a lot more. Like 1,000 days to take 1 to 2% of Ukraine with 1 million casualties. It's not really a great look for Russia. All right. I don't think that's it. I've been saying that I think it ends when there's a political or economic crisis, some kind of acute event in Russia. That's more likely, or they fight it out for a long time, and it doesn't end for quite a while. And one of the worst scenarios is a bad peace that only allows Russia to continue going. But okay, I can't predict that. That's not something that I mean, if I had that prediction ability, I would have made a killing in the stock market before I was doing anything here. Okay, so tell me what other questions you have. I see Eli here. I see Jonathan McElravy here. What other questions do you have? And then we can start talking whenever you have questions. So Jonathan, welcome.
Greetings, Professor.
Uh, if you're in online land, those of you are sorry. If you are in the chat, can you hear him say greetings like he just said? So we want to make sure that the sound is working, because I've had some odd technical problems. So if you are in the chat, could you tell me if you could hear? Yeah, okay, you could hear him. Okay. So what questions do any of you have, whether you're in on Podbean? So Jonathan, if you have a question, or Eli, if you have a question, we can talk here, and then I'll refer back over to the chat periodically. But
I only have one, Professor, and that is, do you think that Ukraine can survive without direct U.S. aid? In other words, Europe puts in so on, but if Trump doesn't actually support Ukraine, can it survive? I tend to think it's right on the cusp of that, but I want your
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, that's a really good question. It would be a whole lot better for Ukraine, obviously, if they did have U.S. support. If Europe steps up in a meaningful way, and they would have to like shift gears from what they're doing, Ukraine could survive. With Europe doing what it's currently doing, no. I think it will just get ground down because Europe has just Europe has talked more than they've actually done. The U.S. as well. I'm not bad mouthing or denigrating Europe. I'm just saying they they spend more time talking than actually talking about we're going to give this aid. We promised we are going to give this aid. We are really about to give this aid sooner than you think. We're going to get that aid to you. Like it's that kind of thing. And so
At
yes,
least it's not 2 weeks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that 2 week thing, like we're on like the eighth cycle of 2 weeks or something like that now. Is that right? Or am I miscalculating? It's frustrating to
It depends.
watch.
It depends on the topic, but yeah, there's been a lot of 2 weeks.
Yeah. So can they so here's a question. When does a war end? If you read von Clausewitz, it's when one side stops fighting. When one side it just capitulates. I don't see that the Ukrainians have any appetite to capitulate because if the enemy's in front of you and your wife and kids are behind you, you have a pretty strong motivation to keep going. So I don't see them capitulating anytime soon, in spite of everything that's going to go on, and it's going to get worse. Um, uh, um, it's going to get worse in the terms of exchange of missiles, in my estimation, and drones and that sort of thing. I think the Russians want to make it worse on the battlefield. I'm not sure how much they can. They're massing around Pokrovsk, and in that mass around Pokrovsk, that's all well and good, but you got to actually be able to do something with that and not run into the minefield in the sky that are drones. And so, anyway, Eli is also here. Eli, hello. If you want to chime in, you're welcome to do so. And in the meantime, until Eli chimes in, do you think that a Trump Putin deal would include a promise from Russia not to reattack Ukraine until Trump's term has been completed? I that's
Oh,
somewhat
jeez.
cynically stated. I think it'll include a promise from Putin not to attack Ukraine, and not until it's completed, but whether there's a wink and a nod from Putin that it won't be during your term or not, I don't. Obviously they wouldn't put that into writing or that sort of thing, but it might be understood that way that's what's going to happen, so that Trump can run his victory lap. But I, I yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be written that way. Let me just state it that way.
Well,
Go
Trump
ahead.
hasn't actually done anything to inhibit Russia.
Yeah, so that's really the thing. Like if you read The Art of the Deal, he's not following his own book, right? So that's really the interesting thing to my mind. It's like if he was at least following his own advice in The Art of the Deal, I'm going to ask for this much more and then I'll get this lesser. He's not doing that. He's not pushing Russia like that because he admitted he doesn't want to damage his relationship with Putin, and that's really the crux of the problem here is Trump's view. If you ever thought that leadership doesn't matter, like in my profession, so I'm a management professor, so that's what is in the subdiscipline though is leadership. My PhD is in org leadership. If you ever thought, so I designed multiple leadership programs at the bachelor's and master's level, and if you ever thought that leadership doesn't matter, look at what's happening right now because it's Trump's really the impediment here. Like let's just be honest. Trump is really in the way. Now, he's in the way because there's who personnel is policy, and who you populate yourself with is or around you, as you know, to give you advice is half of the battle. And I think he has a lot of people that are philosophically not at all interested in being, doing anything for Ukraine. um it was almost written off like it's a lefty issue. The Democrats, which I find amusing, if it wasn't so sad. because like like what I just can't understand how America first means we abandon allies. That doesn't. Yeah. Anyway, so a number of you have just populated into the comments. Um, yeah. So I see this here. Madeline put out here. I sometimes wonder, what does Putin have on Trump? Nothing that we can prove. So I can't say that this is the case because I can't prove it. So if I mean, all my other professor friends would laugh at me if I started going down that path, because that's just a stupid way to proceed from like if I'm trying to be evidence based. And that's why I overly read and overly cite everything, because I'm trying to show you like this is legitimate here. And when it's commentary, I say, this is my commentary. This is just me. This is just my opinion, to clarify. But uh, he may have something, but like, what could you possibly have? I just don't understand what you could possibly have on Trump that would embarrass him, because he's just like, that's like, we know that all the things that he's gone through, uh, he's not likely to easily embarrass or be intimidated by those kind of things, even as terrible as whatever things might be. Okay. Other questions. Professor Gertis explains thoughts on my suggestion of wanting France to give Ukraine a nuke. Yeah, you know what? That would change things real quick. I don't think that anybody has an app. So nobody. You're laughing, Jonathan. Tell me why you're laughing.
uh, the mad principle, you've just created
Yeah.
a untenable situation where you're into this mutual destruction realm. You may not be fully in it with both feet, but you've created that situation. And I look back at the Cuban Missile Crisis, that sort of thing. I I think the shoe will be on the other foot. But the situation with Russia now, they seem to be on their back foot a little bit in Ukraine, and this pushes them into desperation.
Yeah, and so I don't think France wants to get into a position where the Russians are really saying, "Hey, we're now at war with you because of that." But it would change the dynamic radically if Ukraine had these. If somehow surreptitiously they got into the country and they could have these particular weapons, and then Russia would have to reevaluate what it's doing, because yeah, I mean, it would be very different. Why can't Ukraine develop its own nuke? Well, I got the right guy here for to talk about this with me, don't I? Um,
Yeah,
Jonathan
there
actually has a background here, and it's apparently not so easy.
it isn't, it isn't the technical side of it that's difficult. It is the sheer time it takes
Hmm.
to develop the nuke. The they have plenty of nuclear material on in Ukraine's territory. I mean, Chernobyl and all the power nukes that they have. The trouble is extracting the bomb grade material.
And
It
then
takes
and
time.
then
They have massive facilities.
what do you call it? Like, it's like a salad shooter or something to strain it out to go to 90+%, whatever.
The common way right now is the gas centrifuge,
Centrifuge. That's
and
what I was looking for. I'm tired, man.
yeah, they think of it as a oh, how would I put this properly? I always think of it creating an artificial lake. You stir up a lake and it's all mixed up, and it slowly, as the mud starts to settle, you can skim off good water from the top and pure mud off the bottom.
Mhm.
That's what the centrifuge does. It just accelerates that gravity effect.
Yeah.
The only difference between the good uranium and the bad uranium is weight. So you spin it real hard and they tend to separate. So each time you do this, you increase it. But to get the bomb grade, I mean, the first half of enrichment is painfully, painfully slow. But once you start getting into enrichments, you can get bomb grade material faster out of it, but your production is still very, very slow.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, and Cheryl just chimed in here. Cheryl Waitley is saying development and maintenance of nukes is horribly expensive, and they're better deterrent than defensive or offensive weapon. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of required Ukraine to give it away, and that could have been their deterrent. And like when they're talking about the expense, I wonder if Ukraine, or sorry, I wonder if Russia has kept up its maintenance on the nuclear arsenal that it has. I mean, I don't know. There's no way to really find out until you find out. But yeah, I wonder.
Well,
Okay,
well, you get into two classes of nuke. You have the pure uranium nuke, the little boy and all that, or big boy. I always get them mixed up. Anyway, which is just slam two pieces of uranium together, and the other one is the fusion nuke, which requires tritium and deuterium, and that's a much more complicated nuke, but it's much more powerful. I mean, several times more powerful.
yeah. Well, you know a lot more than I do about this. I I, I plead my
Sorry.
ignorance. Okay, Eli and Wayne are here. If either of you want to chime in and ask any questions, you are welcome to do so. Just you have to unmute yourself, and you're already connected. Eli or Wayne? Go ahead, Wayne.
No questions, but I've been watching the Russian economy fairly closely, or at least trying to,
Mm,
and
me too.
I have this strong feeling that they might not make it to Christmas.
So I don't know how to predict it. So like when you see like YouTube, because I mean a lot of the news that you get of this is YouTube or Rumble or podcasts or that sort of thing. And you don't see it on the evening news nearly as much as you should, right? Because it is a pretty big thing. But I don't know when you see these thumbnails and titles saying it's collapsing tomorrow, like that's clickbait. It's you. I've tried to not be clickbait, but show you like, hey, this is what's going on, and it's like so. Yesterday, I put out a video. Let me see if I can find the title or the what it looked like here. It was just 1 week's worth of the terrible stuff going on. My title was I cataloged 7 days of Russia's economic meltdown. Okay, that's not clickbaity. That's just saying, hey, look, I was showing you like all these things, and you see this industry is in bad shape. It's down, 70 or 80% quarter over quarter or year over year. That the coal industry is struggling, and Putin even was talking about how no, nothing to see here. We have coal for the next 900 years. Yeah, but you're not selling it, and that's hurting your economy. And the transportation is not working like it's supposed to. And when you add all those up, it's harming the war effort, but like the economy is also in really bad shape. But I don't know how long they can endure the pain of really bad shape. That's really the trick. So I can't predict.
Well, it's
Go ahead.
actually on that I can definitively tell you the most important part is the fuel issue. If they don't have fuel for winter, they are in deep shit.
Yeah,
They're not going to come apart immediately. I'm not one of the people who are saying that. My own projections are based on rough estimates, basically. But yeah, they've got this huge problem. Sit down, dog. Sorry, I'm in the elevator. The dog's being a nuisance.
yeah.
Um, when I look at it, the fuel issue is going to cause so many tie-ups internally
That's right.
that it's slowly strangling their economy.
That's right. And that's exactly why this
So
last month has been a banner month for Ukraine. August 1 to August 30th was like 12 a dozen or more refineries. The Economist just said 20% capacity was eliminated, right? Like I've been saying 17% conservatively, trying like I try to be cautious here. 17.5% was what I saw as the greatest, the most legitimate estimate that I saw. And then there were a couple more hits. And so 20%, like you do that another month, it's going to really mess with you. I mean, and they're already doing things like Alex Kilmoff just came in. Alex, your question's next here, so just get yourself ready unmuted. So the um, the hit to the economy is not just economic; there's also strain from monkeying with all the businesses, and it's like one thing is on top of another. So if you have inflation, and then you have higher wages, and then you have factories that are hit and destroyed, or like soldiers taken to the front, or what, like it's like everything complicates everything else. So Okay. Anyway, Alex, if you're still there, you're on.
Hello, Professor. Hey, guys. So not to really to ask, like, but to offer, in addition to what you said, and maybe you have a slightly different perspective. So the war is not gonna stop because of economy. So meaning that even if they can find money to get some pipe bombs, so like, or just like what Hamas was doing, just build some rockets out of pipes, whatever. They're going to be doing that. Like as long as Putin remains in power, this is what's going to happen. That being said, by all means, fuel must be hit, cash flow must be hit, because that saves lives. So like there is no small damage, that can be done, to Putin's Russia. Like he just needs to be stopped, and any small cut or big cut must be made. In the end, like regime needs to be toppled, like, but there is a road to it gear to get there, and as many people we can save along the way.
So
That should
Alex,
be done.
you're right, and then I would also challenge part of what you said. What caused the Soviet Union to need glasnost and perestroika, and ultimately caused the
Lack of food.
collapse?
Mhm.
What was the cause?
I would say oil price went down, and Soviet Union couldn't feed itself.
Yeah, so it's the economy, right? So I'm not
Yes.
saying the economy is directly
Oh,
it, but I'm saying the economy can do some significant damage that can
Oh,
weaken
yes.
it to the point that there's this huge
What-
political events that are causing what's. Do you understand my logic? I mean, I'm not saying,
Yes, sir. Yes.
oh, they're just out of money, so they go, we're bankrupt, we have to surrender. I don't think that's it, but I
They-
think, and remember, Afghanistan was going on, and they were getting bled there, and other things along those lines. But the economy was a big strut in. It's a big plank in that platform. Let's put it like that.
it's very much that way, except you miss that regimes like that, whether it's North Korea and so on, can be very poor and continue to put on offensive
That's right.
operations because they're not worried about what
Right.
brought the Soviet Union down was the lack of food.
Yeah. Okay. So, and when you look at what the farms are actually producing, that's also problematic as well. So, so the economy is a big chunk of that, but there are other factors. I totally get that. And so I'm not arguing with you and saying no, you're wrong. I'm saying it's an indirect effect that can have a multiplying impact, if that makes sense. Kevin
Yeah.
just showed up. If Kevin wants to chime in, which I'm pretty sure you do.
Hi, Professor. Just doing a quick check. If one, you can hear me. Two,
Oh yeah, we can hear you fine.
okay, great. Now I want to go down the path of Putin being supported by a variety of players. But one of the more frustrating things I take a look at is you go back to G.W. Bush, the man who looked into Putin's eyes and said he found a man that he could do business with.
Yeah.
So of Obama.
So you're cutting in and out. You said G.W. Bush, a man who you can do business with, and then you said long pause Obama. So I'm guessing that you're talking about the reset button with Obama, with Hillary.
Yeah, just a big long run of people giving Putin a break.
Yeah.
Multiple American presidents to this day won't take Putin out economically. And there's a fear there. And it's very frustrating. Yes, we can be mad at what the rest of NATO isn't doing. They've woken up. They're trying to rebuild their militaries. It's going to take them 5 to 10 years. They're doing the best they can, but they're fearful of thwarting or frustrating Trump. Where do we go with all this?
That's a really good question. I think that you got to get past Trump thinking that Russia is so dreamy and that Putin is so dreamy. And but as you point out, like American presidents have just had this terrible. Like Biden was the difference, most American presidents have had this really like, we've just got to make good with Russia. We've just got to make good with Russia. We've just got to.
Hello.
So it's like a battered wife syndrome or something. And I don't mean to mock battered wives either. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, we just, at a certain point, fool me once, fool me twice, like, how many times?
Yeah.
Was there a follow up to that? I don't know that I have an answer to it, but like, we've got to get past that point before
Well,
something significantly changes.
I think that Europe, those who support Ukraine will. The whole Putin ranting about nobody sends troops into Ukraine has got to somehow be called out. There has to be a move to give Ukraine the kind of support, a bit more physical, air security over its airspace, rear area help, freeing up Ukrainian troops to do more on the front line, and to hold for, frankly, 3 more years through the Trump administration.
Yeah, so your last line was really interesting. So the first part with they've got to do more with like air support or that kind of thing. No European nation wants to step into that, and like they're not willing to do that, and they're not willing to do that as long as Trump is hesitant. Particularly, they don't want to be caught out on their own, right? So, but you said lasting through the Trump administration. I mean, they ought to be just saying, okay, well, we're going to start inviting them into NATO, and just start passing and passing and passing and passing until you get down to it's like Hungary and the United States left, let's say, right? Because Trump will be gone. Fico may very well be gone in February. Like the elections in February, Trump will be gone in 3 years. So yeah. Okay. So I want to get to some other calls here. And I see someone named Shahid. Now, I don't know if that is like actual name or if that's whatever. By the way, I can mute and remove whoever if anybody wants to play funny games with me. So, Shahid, if you're here, you can talk and I'll mute others. And go ahead. And what's your question? Hello, Shahid. And if not, if Shahid doesn't want to speak, if Eli, I also have you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, Prof. Sorry, guys. I had my microphone muted before. I couldn't work out how to get it unmuted. I do have a question. I'd like to change tactics for a sec.
Go ahead.
The summer's almost over. Pokrovsk and the other cities are still holding. It's getting to the point where Ukraine's drone technology is quite superior. They've got the long-range strike drones now. You've also got the hints of the Flamingo and other cruise and ballistic missiles coming online. Putin kind of knows it's probably the last real summer, this summer, because in 12 months' time, the Russian economy is going to be down the gurgler in 12 months. There's no doubt about that. So he is amassing troops. They've also got the Belarus Russian thing coming up shortly. What do you think about? It's kind of a do or die situation. Russia's undoubtedly going to give it one last push this summer. That Ukraine, Zelensky saying that they've amassed nearly 100,000 troops. They're ready to go, and Ukraine's almost ready to go with a huge offensive, a drone air offensive, not a manpower offensive, but a drone offensive. Who's going to strike first, and and what do you see the outcome of? Because I think in the next couple of weeks they're both sides are going to be pushing for one last offensive during this summer. Zelensky's sworn he's going to keep up the hydrocarbon and rail and logistic strikes, which he should do. What do you think is going to happen next? What's the next major thing to happen in this conflict?
Yeah. So I started taking notes because you just my mind was going 10 different directions while you were asking your question. So the first thing is, let's talk about Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk, 100,000 Russians are somehow amassed around or near that. That includes support and that sort of thing. And they want Pokrovsk. But this time last year, I was like, if you go back 1 year into my videos, you'll see Greg, Terry, and I going like, hey, Greg, how long can they hold out really before, like, you've been there, you've been down those roads, some of the roads that are now captured, he's been, dropping aid in those kind of areas. Like, how long can they really hold out before General Winter gets here and bails them out? Right. So I was worried about it last year, and they're still holding. So,
You're still holding, yeah.
okay, so that's with Cross. You talked about Flamingo missiles. I've from what I've seen, I'm not sure that flamingos are going to be the big solution. I they may be more hype than awesome. I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm just saying, like, I don't know that they're up to what they're billed to be, but they have plenty of other options as well in terms of missile drones and other things, like drone missile kind of things. And so they have other options as well, and they've been pretty effective over the last month in going after the refineries and that sort of thing. So okay, that's with the missiles. So you said certainly next year with the economy. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's actually a true statement or not. And I'm not trying to push back because you understand what I'm saying? Like, so Putin's gonna suck the life out of, like a vampire, out of every oligarch and nationalize whatever he needs so he can get his hands on money. He will do whatever it takes. He's not like constricted like you and I. I'm very constricted. I don't want to misstate anything, or maybe this is academic or whatever, like my academic background. I show you, like, to the point where I know people are like, stop just reading. I can read. I know that you can read, but I'm showing you this because I'm trying to oversight and I don't want to misspeak. And I want to make sure that I'm as accurate as humanly possible, given what I know, what I've read, right?
Yeah.
If you're a liar, you could just lie. Right. And so I say that to say that, like, Putin is not constrained the same way that we might think that he's constrained, where he and Alex Kilmoff's out there. Alex, tell me if I'm wrong. Like, is that fair from what you understand with Russian, not just culture, but who Putin is and what what might go down? Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, absolutely. So he definitely, so for him, it is probably impossible now to stop the war, so like, it's just politically, he just like put everything. He stops the war, he probably stops breathing. So it's one thing, and he really doesn't want to stop breathing, so like he is afraid of death, like pathologically. He truly wants to live until 150. He will take whatever organs, like he could take. He doesn't want to die ever. So he will never start nuclear war as well, so
Yeah.
just saying.
Alice, why do you have to bring up something else new that I have to now talk about? Organs. Talking to Xi in China about, with organ transplants, you can live up to 150. Okay, so my dad's like 90,
Yes.
92 or so, right? You're not moving around in a big way. Like when you're okay, I'm 52. I'm still reasonably spry, but when you're 92, what are you going to be like when you're 150, even if you have new organs? Like, that was just a weird conversation. What do y'all think about that conversation? Anybody can chime in. That was some weird stuff.
Allow me, like what.
Go ahead.
So Ben Shapiro doesn't talk much about Ukraine, but when he does, he is actually quite insightful. And specifically on this, like what struck me, and like, yeah, he's right. What kind of Christian Putin is if he wants to harvest organs from other people to continue living? What kind of Christian values is that?
Yeah, he's so there's this veneer of Christianity, kind of like priests in France holding up the French kings before the revolution. It's that kind of. It's not really Christian in the sense that the people that I'll see tomorrow morning in church. You understand what I'm saying? Like they're not. It's not love your neighbor. It is, let's use this in order to prop ourselves up. Okay, so. Yeah, that's and by the way, since you brought up Shapiro is an old school conservative like me who hasn't departed from the ideological roots that he was, where a lot of the party just took this weird turn. By the way, if you don't know, I'm a conservative Republican. I'm all in for Ukraine. Look, shirt, fight like Ukrainians, right? I'm all in, right? But that's because I'm asking myself, okay, well, how would Reagan process this? Well, the answer is pretty clear. He's in that kind of camp, and a lot have just taken this MAGA turn with Trump into weird places that we've never been as a party before. Like we're not like, generally speaking, Republicans have been like, Russia's the bad guy, right? Or we weren't pro tariff or pro protectionist or that sort of thing. It's a very strange thing under Trump, and Trump 2.0 has been worse than Trump 1.0. It's really weird this time around. Okay. Anyway, yeah, you mentioned Shapiro. That's how I got there. Going back to what Eli was talking about. Okay, UA strikes. How the real issue to my mind is how long can those Ukrainian strikes really do the kind of damage that they did in August? If they continue to do the kind of damage that they, in August, a month from now, it's going to be really, really hard economically for Putin, because it's going to start getting worse and worse. But I don't know how much they're okay. So let's back up. It should. Okay, hold on a second. Now, somebody in a comment just put, maybe you should be American Girdist instead of Republican. I'm an American and I'm a Republican, and I haven't left my party. And I think you want more people like me to be supporting Ukraine rather than that you don't like that I'm a Republican. So, okay, let's just set that aside now. So the low hanging fruit was this last month's strikes, right? The easiest stuff to hit. Now, it might get a little bit more difficult in the next month, but maybe a month from that, it's harder or more out of reach to hit, even if their missiles are improving or that sort of thing. So, yeah, I don't know that they'll ever get to 80 or 90% of Russian oil capacity, or certainly not 100%, because it gets increasingly harder and harder the further it is away, or the more it's protected or whatever. But it was at least easy when they, went and Putin went and put his air defense around his palaces instead of around refineries. So,
Yeah.
I mean, okay, who's next? Who else has burning questions that they want to get out?
Yeah, Professor Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin.
If Putin can't subjugate Ukraine, failing, he's not going to be kept alive through organ donations. His sole future lies with his success in subjugating Ukraine.
That's right.
And again, if
you're right. And the way that he wanted to subjugate Ukraine wasn't even military. If he could have done it politically, like he's more of a success in Georgia than he is in Ukraine by a long shot. Does that make sense? Like, didn't have to fire the weapons. You like that. That's what he really wanted, after all.
Hello.
That was the Maidan revolution, and that's what's going on here. Like he didn't want, like he wanted a 3-day exercise to drive the government out and replace him with his own man. Somebody started talking. Who's talking?
Georgia continues to frustrate him, though, because they're a rebellion lurking in the shadows.
Yeah. So I put out there was somebody who had a commentary about, it was like a pro-Russian something, put out a commentary. Look how awesome this military exercise is with the Chinese, with the marching and whatever else. Was like, that doesn't impress me. What impresses me is the people of Georgia still out in the street, still protesting, still demanding their rights, right? Like that's what's impressive.
Inside America, though, Professor, the challenge still remains with all of the frustrations internal to American politics. Ukraine still is relatively low on the mindset of average Americans who are still trying to come to terms with the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And
yeah, no, you're right. It's very low on a totem pole, and it shouldn't be low on a totem pole, because this is big. This is like the biggest war on the European continent since World War II, and we're like kind of yawning about it in the mainstream media. You're spot on. It should be. Other things have chased it out, and yeah, I don't know. Whether like the Epstein files or whatever, the Epstein files are probably important. I don't know how important they are. Speaker Johnson just said something weird yesterday about them, and I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, right? And so I don't say anything until there's evidence. So I'm just providing what Johnson said yesterday, which was that he claimed that Trump was an FBI informant and that the Epstein files were a hoax. And by hoax, he meant the idea that Trump is in them, and that his political opponents are using it to smear him as if he's something. I don't know whether he is or isn't, right? Because I don't have the evidence to be able to prove one way or another. But the Speaker of the House just said yesterday that Trump was an FBI informant on Epstein. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. He didn't provide any proof, but he was just talking. So I mean, okay. But that's captured a lot more attention. And we only have but so much bandwidth. Like we can only pay attention to so many things at once. People will ask me about this thing or that thing domestically, about this little bit of policy, gerrymandering, for example, in multiple states in the United States. I can't really speak to that. I mean, I know what gerrymandering is. I know how, whichever party's in power tends to try to gerrymander and get the best advantage over the other. Okay. But I can't speak to it because I only have the bandwidth to pay attention to what's going on here. When the short-lived war between, the short-lived bombings of Iran was taking place, I was covering that too, because that's also really important. It's tied, connect. Man, I was tired, like I can't explain, trying to do that and not leaving Ukraine at the same time. Not leaving this coverage as well. If, God forbid, but I think it's probably it's very likely to happen, if a war breaks out between China and Taiwan, I'll be talking about that too and trying to, do this simultaneously. I'm not looking forward to that day if it happens in tandem. Because it's important. Both things are very important. So I didn't cover, except for the first couple of days, Israel-Gaza, because Israel-Gaza, while it's important, it breaks out regularly. It's not likely to cause World War III. This is like World War III level. So you're spot on when you're saying that, like, why isn't it being? Yeah, this is really important. Just like a war that China pops off with Taiwan would be that important. Okay, I filibustered too long. Keep going.
A different take on Europe. How far can Europe go in supporting Ukraine before it totally isolates Trump? At what point does Europe say, no, we understand you feel this way, Trump. However, we're going in a much different path. How bold can Europe be before it loses Trump's America?
I think your question is assuming that Trump actually is patient and wants to do something. So I showed Sikorsky, the foreign minister, the other day, saying, I marvel at Trump's patience. And I said, he's patient in the same way that my students are patient about not doing their homework. Right? And what I mean by that is that, like, they're not patient in not doing their homework. They just don't want to do it. And they're procrastinating because they don't want to do it. That's different than being patient. So they can actually go a long way. And I think Trump would be like, yeah, God bless them. If they're doing it and I'm not, and I still keep my relationship with Putin, it's all good. I mean, that's my read of Trump. Everybody who's here, you can unmute, chime in, tell me if you see it differently. But that's how I'm reading it. And I came to that conclusion somewhere over the summer. I put out a video. It was like, I got it wrong. And I was talking about how, like, Trump, he's not really wanting to do this. I think and I got some of the details wrong in that video, but the basic thrust of it is Trump wants to just keep that relationship going and is happy to let other people, do the heavy lifting. And at that time I was talking about happy to let, like, even Congress perhaps override him. Now, maybe that could happen, but that was like one of the particulars that I gave at the time. He just doesn't want to be the bad guy to Putin for some reason I just don't understand. And
could I just chip in here?
Give me 1 second and I'll let you go next. Somebody just put, well, Vlad knows more than the value of compromise. Right. Maybe he does, but we can't prove it. And so I'm not going to say something that we can't prove. So you might be right that he has some kind of compromise, but I'm not going to say it because I can't show. Okay, go ahead.
From the UK, Miles from the UK here, aka Southwest Stokey. The whole, for Trump to keep on promising things and not deliver, I mean, making serious threats about sanctions, etc., or what appear to be serious. How can he be credible? How long can he be credible for making those sort of statements? It's just flabbergasting.
So, a threat is often as powerful as doing the thing, and if he can threaten and get his way, that's better than, like, if you go back to like a Clausewitz or Sun Tzu. If you can get the threat and actually get the effect, that's better than engaging in the battle. I think that's what he's trying to do, is get the effect without having to actually do the thing.
But in 2 weeks.
Well, no, but something might happen in those 2 weeks that just fortuitously solve the problem. Look, I do this in my personal life, right? Where you know, some things I just don't address, whether it's like something at work or something at home that is a problem that I know is a problem, because, you know, it might take care of itself and not be something. So I'm not going to spend the mental energy on it.
Threats lose their power when they're repeatedly not followed up on.
That's true. And they lose their power after you actually do something and it's no longer a threat. And you're like, yeah, that wasn't that bad.
How many red lines from Obama?
Right. Say, yeah. So red lines from Obama, red lines from Putin to Biden, or, you know, and Biden would cross them like, like say what you will about Biden. And I've been a critic of Biden's, but Biden was actually legit deterred and then was very cautiously going over those red lines, trying not to do, like, Trump's not like that. He's not deterred by Putin. He just wants to hang out with him.
Exactly.
It's weird.
Allow me to offer a theory what's happening between Trump and Europe, and
Go ahead.
how it might continue. So, first of all, some observation about Trump. He's actually can be led. You know, so like one of his most decisive actions of his second term of bombing Iran, which were like all previous presidents were not dare, you know, like even talk about it. He did it, but he did it following Israel. Israel removed all, and like Israel was pummeling Iran for a few days, and then Trump stepped in because he saw an opportunity. But he was led into that action. That's my first claim, hypothesis, if you like. A second, Europe is actually
wait,
taking.
let's understand your first hypothesis first. So your hypothesis is he'll follow if he sees that something is already kind of winning.
Right.
Okay.
So essentially, like,
easy. He only takes the easy route.
Okay, and that may very well be fair. I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it Jason J? I just recorded something with Jason J. Smart yesterday, and I want to give him credit if it was his idea. I think it was his idea. I don't know if we were talking about it on the screen or off the screen, but I'm going to attribute it to him. Something in Trump's psyche is there are these winners, and then there's these losers, and these losers we don't need to even pay attention to. It's the winners. You want to hang out with them. And I think that Trump sees Putin as a winner. And if you can get Trump away from, and this might have been just our conversation behind, but I'm pretty sure I got the from him. Yeah, he only wants to hang out with the winners. And if he starts seeing Ukraine as the winner and Putin as a big loser, I think he'll shift the way that he acts, because of that's my hypothesis, similar to your follow what's already winning hypothesis. Okay, number two.
Right. Number two, a huge thing just happened, and I don't see anyone talking about it much, at least. UK just paid for Ukrainian emission using frozen Russian assets, not percentages of frozen Russian assets.
Was it the actual assets themselves, or was it?
I believe so. Like,
oh,
I could
wow.
be mistaken, but
I thought it was the interest on the assets.
No, the way how I saw the news, like it was talking about as Assad himself. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah, I
because
assumed that
I
it was not, and it was like a loan on the frozen Russian assets or whatever. But I have to go back and look at that now because that would be a big departure from what was being done before.
right.
Yeah, there was strong support in Parliament for that, and I don't know that it actually happened, Alex.
Yeah, I mean,
yes,
Hmm.
strong support.
they're more hawkish about it than some other people. And I've consistently taken a position: don't do that. You're going to gum up the whole financial system if you do that. But yeah, using the interest of it has been a clever compromise. And yeah, and then you lose the
Right.
leverage if you use it too, because now you've done the thing.
Right. But essentially, Europe needs to understand that they're at war with Russia. And so, for example, if you want, let's say that we're talking about financial stability of financial system, right? It's very easy how not to lose your money. Don't start a war with us. If you start a war with us, like, okay, so like all safety is off, so like it was like pretty clear. And Russia can be actually used as an example. Well, don't try to kill our people. Don't sabotage our country. Don't jump our planes. Like, so guys, like, how much do you need to continue to do that shit before you take it seriously? In fact, so in the dynamic between Trump being led or not, or being a threat to Europe, like, and so on, and like, so it is possible that Europe will finally realize that, guys, like, there is existential threat. Barbarians are at the gate. Barbarians are past the gate. What are you gonna do about it?
I think
So,
Europe's like me. I see myself as my 20-year-old self. And then periodically I'll look in the mirror and look up and go, who's the old guy? Oh no. Right. And then I know that when I go for a walk, because I used to be a runner when I was in high school and college, and then I became a jogger and now I walk. Right. I think Europe's like me, like, you got to get back into shape. Maybe we're not quite in fighting condition here yet. And I think they're waking up to that reality. And you see them starting to move. Tell me, I mean, if you're from Europe, tell me if I'm missing something here, but it seems like they're kind of cluing in that they're not what they used to be, and they got to get caught up.
Agreed.
right. So
The only way
essentially,
we can deal with directly and have an effect is with NATO. I can't see Europe ever being cohesive enough to be effective.
Yeah, so NATO's a kind of a good thing when it works, and when it here we're seeing some of the dysfunction that has been maybe hiding under the surface. And you can't see, I mean, it's kind of like total quality management. Total quality management drove out all the inefficiencies by reducing all the slack. And that's once we reduce the slack and say, okay, are you going to step up? Are you going to do this? Do you have the wherewithal to do this? Are you going to send troops as peacekeepers? No, that's not really me. Like we're just talking about peacekeepers. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Are you going to send them? No, not me. I'm not doing it. So you're starting to see where they are really strong and where they aren't strong and that sort of thing. So a couple of people just joined us. So if you're one of those two people that I just let in, welcome. And what do you have to say?
Professor Gertis, this is Discover Tree, and I really think that there are some facts that need to be put on the table about Trump, and most specifically, the reason why his behavior is so confounding and confusing is because it's a show to hide the true intention of Trump, which is to damage both America's position in the world as well as damage America's institutions from within. And we don't have to speculate, and we don't need to. There is not a lack of data that would be able to provide evidence to this fact. We can go back to January.
So
go ahead.
You can provide the evidence then if that's his true intent and not just terrible ideas or something that is going to make him look good that doesn't really work out the way that he thought it would be or that sort of thing. Go ahead and make your case.
Well, sure. I think the first and most obvious example is the entire January 6th situation, which was intended to damage and weaken the institutions
but was
of the.
No, hold on a second. Now I'm going to challenge you on that. Was that intended to damage the systems, or was that intended to get them to, hey, let's not do this just yet. Let's go back and recount and see and make sure. I don't think it was intended to damage the system. I think it was intended to get him to get a recount, because it was about him.
Professor,
Hold on.
If you're telling me that
hold on a second.
assault. Okay,
hold on.
Hold on.
I'll let you speak. Okay. I'm not going to cut you off. I'm going to let you give your bit. But you're saying that he is intending to do damage. I think the easier read is that he intends to make himself look good or do something for himself. And if it does damage, well, I mean, it did damage, but that wasn't. I mean, I was just trying to make myself look good. That's my read. That one there. So if you want to have the other one, let's hear what you have to say and go ahead. But you got to show that there was really trying to do that, not just assert it. Go ahead now.
Okay. Well, I think we do have a very different perspective on January 6th and the intent behind January 6th. Number one. Number two. Let's look at the whole tariff regime. Let's be clear. That is, on any economist is going to be very clear that tariffs are a tax, and tariffs are going to damage and weaken both the economy of the United States, as well as look at the incredible damage that it's doing to our relationships around the world. India couldn't have run faster into the arms of China and Russia after being threatened and beaten over the head with a cudgel of tariffs. So tariffs are nothing more than a mechanism to weaken America and its standing in the world, both internally and globally.
Okay, so I heard what you said. I agree with you about everything about how tariffs are terrible. They're absolutely terrible. I've been preaching this for years. Now, you're going to have to somehow convince me that it's not just that Trump thinks that tariffs are good because he's ill-informed, or some of his advisors are talking tariff, or he's looking at just the side of look at the workers, they're going to benefit from this, and ignoring the other stuff because he's just not thinking like you and I do. So you're making the case that he is trying to do this. I say that he's doing this, but not necessarily trying to do this, but he is only looking at the side of the coin of tariffs because maybe he's ill-informed, or maybe he doesn't understand, or maybe he has other economists like his Secretary of Commerce who loves tariffs. So I think it's more that that scenario than that he's trying to do this. If you've got to show more that if he's trying to do it, that he's doing, you got to show more about his motive and his intent. Did you understand?
I've got one last thing. I do understand what you're saying. I've got one last thing, and I'll let the conversation kind of move on. The point that I would make to that point is this: there's never going to be a smoking gun. It's not going to exist. But what you can do is begin to clearly connect all of the dots, because the two examples I gave are among many examples of him trying to weaken institutions. I'll give you a real quick one: the demonization of the media. That's weakening an institution. So, I mean, you have to connect some dots here, and I freely admit that you have to connect some dots. But there's a certain point at which, what is it, a Occam's razor, or
Occam's razor? I was just about to bring up Occam's razor to prove my side. No, and it's fine. You can have a different opinion. We don't all have to agree. Most of you don't agree with me on everything. In fact, it's pretty likely that none of you agree with me on everything, right? So, but that's perfectly right. All right, we can have that. So I would use Occam's razor to say, okay, so that same example, he's trying to blunt them so that he can have the bully pulpit and just be unopposed. I mean, I don't know that he's
connect the dots,
but I think
connect the dots.
I am connecting the dots. These are my dots. They're all connected. I have a straight line. So with that, that doesn't mean that he's not doing damage too. I will fully, readily agree that there's clearly a secondhand effect is damage. Right. But I'm not convinced that his intent is like some kind of undercover agent trying to destroy the thing. Now,
well, the interesting thing will be is the final result will be the emperor's clothes, the people will see the emperor has no clothes eventually. It's beginning to actually happen.
Kevin.
It's beginning to actually happen. So I really appreciate the content, Professor, and look forward to continuing to collaborate.
Now I'm going to add one more thing to you before you're done, and then I want to hear what you have to say. MAGA wants him to kick the teeth in the institution. Somebody just yawned really loud, so I'm going to mute whoever that was. So MAGA really wants Trump to be the bull in the china shop, to kind of stick it to the system. So there is that, but it's not just it's not just destroying everything just for the sake of destroy. It's like to get the revenge for feeling overlooked and that sort of thing. And I think that is part of the system, and he's doing that, fulfilling his promises of whatever to some degree. But it's still all about him.
Yeah, there's the whole MAGA,
and I'll leave you the last.
The whole MAGA dynamic is that there is a portion of our population, and it tends to be about my father's age. Is where it seems to kind of have. That's actually where it did not begin. It began far before that. But there's a portion of the population that is truly anti-government, and that's part of the DNA of America, right? This anti-government kind of fueled anger at the institutions of government. And so there's a portion of America that wants somebody, and Trump is that somebody, to go in and just go in there and bash and destroy and tear down institutions.
That's a real I'm going to let you keep going. That's a real populist thing. If you look at populist movements all over, that's an indicator. And I've said again and again, Trump's not a conservative. He's a populist. And if you
are exactly correct,
populism, then a lot of these things make sense.
You are exactly correct. And the MAGA wing has, and where I was really surprised is I thought the true Republicans. I call myself a former Republican, true American. You seem to kind of choose to stay with that cabal.
Yeah, I'm still a Republican. Look, I still root for the Mets. The team changed. I'm hoping that they'll have a better team that can win more games in the future. But I'm still a Mets fan, right?
It's so difficult because they've abandoned the principles that make it's unbelievable. So, Professor, we'll stay in touch. I'll continue to chime in. But hey, wonderful conversation. By the way, Slava Ukraine, and listen, I can go on a whole different tangent around the Ukraine, which I will look forward to having that conversation with you down the road.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's invalid. I just think you have to be careful to make the assertion that he's doing it. So if you had said Trump is doing all this damage, look at what he's done here, look at what he's done there, look at what he's done in other places, I'd say I 100% agree with you. That he is trying to, that his motivation is just to do that, or he's some kind of, or Putin's got something on him and he's doing it for that. Those kind of things, I just can't allow. Does that make sense? Without evidence, I just can't.
Yeah, I do understand I understand your point. And so for me, I will freely agree that I am making the one extra step, mental leap to because the question is why. The question is why.
Yes.
Because the evidence is so overwhelming that I think all of this damage is being done. So the question is why.
If you're watching simultaneously, somebody put here Krasnov. That's why, right? Like, I don't know that that's it. It could be. I have to allow that is a legitimate possibility, but I don't have the evidence, so I can't actually say. Right? But I'd be doing a terrible job as a professor. Like, this is what I do in my day job. I'd be doing a terrible job if I just allowed. Oh yeah, well that's why. Of course, that's it. That has to be it. Right? So,
well, for sure. But I appreciate you are open to the possibility, the real possibility that there's some element that's true there.
Yeah, there is a possibility. I don't have any evidence. So I can't assert it. Somebody else put out this. Gertis can't bring to say that he's MAGA light supporter and he can't be critical of Trump when it comes to Ukraine. Man, I've been critical of Trump. Like somebody was laughing in the background. I've been critical of Trump. I get it from both sides. Those that are like most MAGA-ish or most conservative or that kind of populist wing, whatever, criticize me regularly for being like, how can you say this about you, about Trump, that kind of thing. And then I
As
get
it
it from the other side as well. So
As it
no,
relates to Trump, Professor, I think what you're trying to do is be intellectually disciplined, right? I think you're
correct.
trying to be intellectually disciplined, and I think that's a really important function, and that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy your content is because you do bring that approach, and I do think you try to call balls and strikes as fairly as possible without perhaps taking the extra step or the extra leap, because you're right. There's no evidence
And I lay
that
my
we have.
cards on the table. I tell you where I'm coming from philosophically, right? And
Yeah,
that I am this. This is who I am. Now, this is how I see it. And so, okay. I mean, but Trump he's just disappointing in a number of ways that if you're from the conservative camp, you're like, what are you doing? Like, we have 4 years theoretically to have enjoyed having a conservative at the helm, and I can't enjoy this or that or the other thing or this, and let alone his personality, which I find very grinding because, like, where's the civility? I miss Romney. Like, I miss Obama
right.
just for
Absolutely.
reasonably. Obama had his moments, but he was reasonably civil most of the time. So
Now, as it relates to Ukraine, now let's take one step further. Let's talk a little bit about Ukraine because Trump is again the question is why? Why is he so reticent? Why is he so reluctant? Why is he so um, hesitant to take any meaningful action whatsoever? And again, it just becomes another dot that's very difficult to not connect. That there's some connection to all of this stuff because at the end of the day, it's very clear that he's willing to let Ukraine hang out to dry. Now, the
yeah,
amazing thing about it, and God bless you, Ukraine, because what they're proving is their toughness is going to be the thing that ultimately brings Russia down. Russia is on the verge of collapse, whether it's in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, who the heck knows? But we're going to go through another Soviet style collapse here in the next 18 to 24 to 36 months would be my
I
speculation.
think that's a very real possibility. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, Tomas, if you're there, you can join us. I'm muting everybody else because there's some bells going off in the background. There's some little squeakiness. So Tomas, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm here. I wanted to talk about Poland actually,
Okay,
how
go ahead.
we are basically losing information war with Russia. I am Polish, so I'm talking like from the perspective of a citizen. Like I'm really seeing that we are losing informational war with Russia.
Mhm.
Like maybe around a year ago, I was seeing a lot of negativity towards Ukraine on places like Twitter, on the internet, but not in real life. But gradually, I'm noticing this in real life as well. Like there's sentiment where Polish people are becoming negative towards Ukraine, and it's, to me, I truly believe this is a work of Russian special forces.
Yeah. You see the same in Slovakia now too. Like, not Slovakia. Sorry, the Czech Republic. It's heating up there as well. Slovakia has been like that for some time, but like the information war is a legitimate thing that we have to be aware of. You're not wrong.
There's a Polish YouTube channel called Polityka Zagraniczna. It's in Polish, so, and I don't think there's any translation, but he made a video recently about this, and it really hit me hard. He made a video where he explained how Poland is already in war with Russia, how we are basically already being attacked, and he talked like there are so many suspicious things happening in our country, so many things set on fire. The biggest one happened, I think, around a year ago. I don't know if you remember, I actually messaged you on Patreon about a shopping mall fire in Warsaw. it was around 1,400 small businesses that were destroyed. And Sikorsky said that we know it was done by Russian special forces, and the response was to close a Russian consulate in Poznań.
Mhm.
But things like this are happening. Like a week or 2 weeks ago, we had a Russian drone fly around like 100 kilometers into Poland.
And nothing happened, right? They scrambled jets. Why even waste the jet fuel?
With all of this, I'm asking, why are we hating Ukrainians? I mean, I'm not hating Ukrainians. I believe that they are defending our freedom with their own blood. And just if I was a selfish person, I would still feel the same way.
Well, if I was Polish, I would be very concerned to make sure that Ukraine it wins, if only out of selfish reasons, at the very least, because I don't want Russia on my border. It's bad enough having Belarus on your border. You don't want. I mean, you already have part of Russia with the Suwalki, but I mean, like okay, you just don't want to do that. You don't want to go down that path, and you don't want them to be, giving them any more reason to get closer or to get antsy with Belarus trying to close the Suwalki gap between Kaliningrad and Belarus. Like you just don't want that. So you want to but again, Poland has been largely supportive. The Baltic states have been largely supportive. So. Yeah. Okay. There are other callers that I just, made allowed. Dean B. If you're here, you can. I'm going to mute. I'm going to mute Tamaz, and Dean. If you want to talk, you can talk.
Sure, Professor. Thanks very much. I'm calling from Western Australia. It's 11 p.m. here. I understand that you're a professor of leadership or something of that nature.
Yeah, my PhD is in org leadership.
Exactly. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the failure of leadership, particularly in the US and also in Europe.
Really, really important. Like so let me instead. Okay, I talked about this earlier with Trump. Like if you think leadership didn't matter, look at what Trump's doing. Like Trump could do something about it, and he chooses not to. Biden did something about it, but not as much as he needed to. Right? If you want to look at leadership, look at Zelensky in the first hours of the war. People were like, I remember coming down. I was at an academic conference, and I came downstairs and I was like, I turned on the TV to iron my clothes and go downstairs for breakfast, and it was like, whoa, Putin invaded. What is going? And I'm talking to the other faculty around the table, like, I didn't see that coming. Did you? Like last week we were talking about how he's just saber rattling. He just wants some concession, whatever. So I remember thinking that. Now, in the first hours, what did Zelensky do? Zelensky was running up a flag. It's called sense making. And he ran up a flag, said, look, this is what we're doing. He didn't flee. If he fled, everybody else, the system probably would have broken in those early hours. Like that was the critical moment. Instead, what does he do? He's out in public walking around going, look, I'm here. The prime minister's here, the head of the office, the president's office is here. We're all here. We're in, and he's showing the background walking around in Kyiv. That was awesome, right? And then you see saying I need ammunition, not a ride, right? That was a clear sense-making message. So short of those kind of actions, it could have really imploded. But he did the right thing to send out a clear signal so that everybody could get on the same song sheet. So leadership really matters.
Yes, but do you have any theories on why leadership is so weak in the West?
That's a really good question. My mind's going into Hitler talking, like Hitler had a very low opinion of democracies, and I think there may be something to the democracy versus autocracy thing, and that doesn't mean that leadership is weak. It's just different. So if you think of strong men, like a strong man, like you think an autocrat, a Xi, a Putin, that kind of thing, a Kim. that's not really strong leadership. It's actually weaker leadership with fear. I mean, it's fear and harassing the population and making them cower and that sort of thing. Real strong leadership would be more like a FDR in World War II. Um, you to rally the Democratic, to bring everybody along with you is strong, but it takes, and the reason I reference Hitler is it takes time. Hitler thought less of democracies because they have a hard time getting it together, and once they get it together, they're really strong. But that's because you just can't just command it. Does that make sense? I think that is at play, but I think that Trump also just is not on a page where he wants to command it. He doesn't. He wants to be Putin's pal, it looks like, and he doesn't want to damage that relationship. If he wanted to go all in, he could rally that, and it would take a little time, but he could rally that, and he could be far stronger in meaningful terms than someone who can just command, or you could be killed.
I could offer.
I put a comment on one of your videos to say today about this, and I kind of disagree with you. I say that Putin is a stronger leader because he's actually getting what he wants done, whereas in the West we're not getting done what we need to be done.
So I would argue with your definition of what strength is. Then strength is bringing people along willingly. So when you're a leader, you're trying to lead people to a place where they want to go, or what's good for them, or helps them grow, or that sort of, or gets the organization's missions done. Just commanding isn't leadership.
Yeah. Well, I have to disagree on that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm settled in my position, so like we can disagree. Alex started to chime in here. Alex, did you have something to say?
Right. I wanted to offer, some additional thoughts on what happens, like say with democracy and why it's so slow, like say why Europe is so slow to pick up pace. So democracy is by definition is done by majority of the people. Majority of the people, they don't perceive a threat, like they don't try to educate themselves, like what is happening, even in neighboring country. Well, maybe neighboring country, like in Poland, it would be like if there is a major war, like you would notice. But I mean, like if you're in Spain or in Italy, like why would you care? And that means that if you're a politician in that kind of climate, then messaging is very important. It's like if your electorate doesn't care about these goals, then it's really hard to execute on them.
Yep.
So yes, it takes a while, just to pick up a pace, and it's extremely critical. Like not only say for Zelensky, just to do sense making, but what Merz is doing in Germany right now. Like so, he's a mountain, So that man is a legend, So he's specifically because he's doing sense making. Like every time when he speaks, he speaks very directly. He speaks very clearly, like he doesn't lose himself. And we need more leaders like Merz. And yes, and there is a big role of a person in a history. Like so, UK is extremely lucky to have a Churchill when they needed one. If he wasn't there, like so, maybe there wouldn't be UK today. Like so, maybe it would be some, I don't know. Don't want to go there.
To that last point about Merz and his sense making. So as you were saying, something just finally clicked in my head. If I, as the boss, can make you do something, that's not leadership. That is just you have to do it because you have to do it. If you want to see really good leadership, go see someone who can lead volunteers. If they show back up tomorrow, you led well. Does that make sense? That's what I'm trying to communicate, and that's more like what democracies are like than what an authoritarian regime is like. So just because you got it done doesn't mean that you're a good leader in that sense, because if I can point a gun to your head, I can make you do all kinds of things, right? So yeah. Okay. Just a couple things I wanted to show here. Someone said this. No. You haven't been around long enough to know that. I didn't vote for Harris. I didn't vote for Trump. I couldn't pull the lever for Trump, even though I am a Republican and unabashedly, I'm a Republican. Cheryl said, "Oh, he probably wrote his dissertation on it." If you're talking about the comment up here about Hitler and Stalin and that sort of thing, you're close. I did write my master's thesis on the Third Reich, but not my dissertation. My dissertation was on the American founding fathers. So anyway, all right. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah. Okay. Did I cut you off here, Alex? I'm going to let you wrap up because we're already over an hour. That went quicker than I thought. I just looked up and we're past an hour.
I wanted just to grab this opportunity to get back to destroying oil refineries in Russia and what would happen like as a result. So Putin actually has like quite a big pile of money in banks. It's people's money, and it's to account of probably just a bit less than 50 trillion right now, which is a huge pile of money. That being said, if refineries continue to get hit, that will have impact on the war, but it will have a huge impact on the economy. In particular, inflation is going to go very, very high up. Putin will seize this money. There is just like no other way, like one way or another, most likely as a high percentage loan, which you cannot get back before 15 years expires. Essentially, it's just a steal. But what is like Ukraine needs to continue hitting these refineries, in particular, to make the 50 trillion with inflation worth nothing. Like this needs to come from a big pile of money to a big pile of paper, or even less because it's all electronic now.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Just a couple of cents.
Yeah. Okay. And with that, I'm going to leave you with, because we're way past time. I was trying to stay within an hour. She said, I was talking about what leadership actually is. Okay. You're right. I did write my dissertation on this. It was about the founding fathers as they were going through the Constitutional Convention and the ratification debates. It was the Americans, leadership assumptions of American statesmen during the Constitutional Convention and ratification debates. That's the title of my dissertation. So yes, that is what I wrote about. Okay, at any rate, that's neither here nor there. Thank you for your time, folks. Thanks for the conversation. And again, you all can disagree with me. That's fine. All that I'm asking for you to do is just try to prove the points or prove that is actually happening, not just push forward an assertion and say, this is what it is. Anybody can do that, right? But prove out what you're saying. And all right, that's all that I have, folks. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate that. I'm going to try to do this again at 10 a.m. on Thursday. That's what I'm shooting for. And then I'm going to try to get into a cycle of maybe Monday and Thursday at that time and see how that all plays out. Because I like this format where we can just talk about things. So, all right, have a good one. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you all for being the kind of people that care about Ukraine.